Recording in progress.
Hello, honorable members. May I apologize for this delay and welcome all the members of the committee. Could we just confirm our presence here? Can we? Hi, Honorable Labuskachne, at least I know you are here. Honorable members, Honorable Mtetwa,
Yes, greetings.
Honorable Van Sale. Yes,
Good afternoon.
your video looks like your photo, so it's good to move. Thank you, Honorable Direko. Yes, certainly. Honorable Mtetwa, and very formal. You look very smart. Honorable members, let me say at this point, I'd like us to start this meeting by observing a moment of silent prayer and meditation. Thank you very much, honorable members. Before we proceed, I need to just request your indulgence. I have a slight challenge in that I got caught up in an area where I have to be taking a flight in between, so my flight arrangements went out of control. So I would like to start the meeting, but at a certain point, request that the meeting proceeds in my absence. And so I would ask Honorable Direko to help me to take it through after I have had to leave. So that's my first apology. The second point I would like to table for the members who've just been exchanging on the chat line that there's an announcement made by the minister withdrawing the appropriation bill and its attachments from the previous tabling, which he did, and that subsequently there is an amendment of the appropriation bill that will be tabled. So I have had a conversation with the chairperson or House chairperson, who has indicated to me that this certainly has got serious impact on the appropriation bill as was tabled before. However, no one has details of what is involved. At this point, what they would probably suggest is that it is possible that it may affect some of the issues that we might be deliberating on. However, they believe that a processing of this matter with the whips, with the different parties and the programming committee and everything will take us to a point where a new program will be designed for Parliament, which will also involve us. Now, that process may ultimately lead up to a reorganization of a lot of processes in Parliament. However, they are not quite sure that the detailed and the changes that will be ultimately effected have got a direct impact on the things that we are discussing as a committee. In other words, there is a lot of work we can process as a committee, particularly in relation to some of the APPs and some of the reports that we want to look at. Some of the stuff may well, by the time it gets the appropriation bill gets tabled, may have already been altered, in which case we'd have to address the issue at that point. The other alternative would be for us to say we'll play it by the ear at the time when there's something new. We'll then look at it, but we use the space to cover as much as possible in case a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with may not necessarily be changing at that point. There may well be changes here and there, but it may not be affecting literally everything that we have to do. So I'm not sure if that is clear enough. In my case, I thought it was clear that the House chairperson hasn't got new details that will that he can indicate how it affects us and the deliberations that we're going through. But they do believe that we could use the space to process as much of the committee work and the committee reports, then evaluate when the appropriation bill has been tabled, to what extent there are changes that need to be entertained at that level. And I'm putting this one up front here because I'd like the members to give us a guidance. My guidance would be, my proposal would be, we proceed with the discussions and the presentations that were given to us and cover as much as we can cover. Then when the appropriations bill is tabled, we would ask that the minister should highlight areas where there are changes, and therefore we can sit down and consider those changes in the context of how we've been able to look at the APPs and the reports and the budgets and everything before. So that therefore we can then just say whatever we adopt, we've actually come to a conclusion that this is the effect that it's got on the appropriation bill that will be tabled at that point. That is how I would like to leave the matter, and I'm putting it before we go further into the agenda so that the members can indicate their sense of guidance as to how we'll take this matter forward. My view, as I say, is we proceed with all of this, and somewhere along the line when everything is clear, we review and then ask the minister to tell us what changes have been affected and what parts are affected, and then we can then reconcile that with what we would have already processed before, just in case it's a smaller proportion that may not be affected. I can't say it's small, but I'm just saying that we can either just push the work further away and only to be caught up later with a lot more work, whereas we could process a lot and then do less at that time. That's open for members to comment. That's how much I was able to get. Honorable Buthelezi, Honorable Van Zyl, Honorable Direko, Honorable Mthethwa, Honorable Labuschagne, I will hear your voice as I see your names appearing. I know you haven't raised your hands, but I can imagine that before we get to the end, I'd like to know what you think. Honorable Buthelezi, you are the first one.
Good afternoon, Tuabe. Good afternoon to fellow colleagues. My take is that I concur, Chair, with your proposal. It only just makes sense because if we put the work aside to be cornered later. So really, in short, I think I concur with that. At the right time, the minister can come and highlight the points of departure or the differences from the document. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Shenge, for your comment. Honorable Mthethwa, you're next.
Greetings, Chair. I think let's fix the aeroplane as we fly it. So it means it's business as usual. The changes that are being effected as we anticipate them will be carried into the spirit of what we would have worked on, but let's do the work so that you don't have to redo this work. So let's just be progressive and take the cue from what you've already told us, because if you don't have information and they don't have it, that means let's just continue with what we are doing.
Thank you, Honorable Van Zyl.
Thank you, Chair. I think we can continue with the APPs as they aren't that much affected by the budget process. But obviously, when matters of budget is concerned, we should maybe halt and revisit at a later time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Direko.
Thank you, Chair. I also support your proposal.
Thank you, Honorable Labuschagne. You muted, eh? We need your face and your voice. You muted still.
So, my apology. I agree that we continue, but I also support Honourable Van Zyl's proposal. I don't think the APPs will be so much affected by the adjustment, or we can't talk about an adjustment because we haven't approved the budget yet. But for the new budget, I think all departments could be affected. And I can foresee that we will most probably have another meeting to discuss the changes. But I think we should focus on the APPs. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ndamasa.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies about the pace. I second your proposal as you made it before, without any amendment as you put it initially. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. I can't see Sumpa. I can't see Taibosh. But it's fine if they're not here, it's not a problem. We will proceed with the meeting. May I then ask that Shireen please table the agenda for this meeting? Thank you very much, honorable members. Good direction. Honorable members, let's look at the agenda. Please move it up. Thank you very much, honorable members. Our agenda for today, we're focusing on discussion with Salga. Here we're looking at the annual performance plan as well as the performance reports. And of course, after this submission, we will have the matters under discussion. May I therefore at this point welcome the president of Salga and the leadership of Salga, executive of Salga, to take us through this presentation. Let me then say at this point, whilst the presentation is going on, I will stand down and hand over to Honorable Direko. I will stay on the platform for as long as it will take, but once I have to log off, I will. But then at this point, may I invite Honorable Direko, please take over. In the meantime, we're going to then, after that, ask the President of Salga to address us, and then, of course, the presentation as they have prepared. Honorable Direko.
Thank you, Chair. As per the item, greetings, honorable members and colleagues, you are all welcome to the meeting. As the Chair has indicated that he will have to leave the meeting when the time arrived, so I will now allow the President of Salga and the colleagues that are accompanying him to give us the presentation. Councillor Becky Charles Tofile.
Thank you very much, Chair, and greetings to you and members of the Portfolio Committee. We will walk you through on what you have asked us to prepare and present, and it is my belief that such a presentation has been forwarded to yourselves for at least preparation for this meeting. With the Deputy President of Salga, Tola Pakati, the CEO and the COO, CEO Stolem, and COO.
Is it only me or I don't hear anything?
It's not only you, it looks like we've lost
Yes.
Councillor Stofile.
It's not only you.
I'm audible now.
Yeah, you are audible now, Councillor Stofile.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's because probably I've got a network problems. Thank you very much, Chair. As I've said, there's the CEO, Sal Gastole, and Lance are here. Let me just briefly reflect and thank very much for the Portfolio Committee to create a space for us to interact and account on what we are doing as an organization, and of course, reflect on what we have achieved and what we have not achieved, and what are the plans to achieve what we have not achieved thus far, and what are the challenges and how do we then deal with those challenges going into the future. With that in mind, Chair, please allow me to invite Lance Joel to lead presentation on this matter. Thank you very much, Chair.
Well, thank you very much, Chairperson, and greetings to yourself and all of the honourable members of the Portfolio Committee, as well as the Salga leadership. We had sent through to the Secretariat two presentations, Chairperson. The first presentation was a progress report against the deliverables for Q2 and Q3 of the 2024-2025 financial year. The second presentation is the annual report or the annual performance plan of Salga for the 2025-2026 financial year. I have decided to merge the two into a single presentation, Chairperson, so that when we present, there is a flow of the information that we would want to share as requested. So please just be mindful that some of the slides that are here find expression in both of the presentations that we had shared with the Secretariat. And I'm going to start, Chairperson, with the mandate of Salga. Of course, appreciating that when we met with the Portfolio Committee last year and presented our 5-year plan as well as our APP for the last financial year, we did touch on the slide, but merely for ensuring that we are on the same page and it informs the presentation in its content. Salga itself is mandated directly by municipalities, but also through legislation that relates to local government. And when we package all of those mandates, legislative and directly from municipalities as a membership-based organization, we anchor them on 6 pillars. The first pillar is the lobby, advocacy, and representation mandate that we have, and it largely relates to Salga representing the interest of municipalities in the IGR space. The second mandate is the employer body role, where we act as the representative voice and the employer body for local government in the bargaining space. The third mandate relates to capacity building, where we endeavor to build the capacity of both the political and the administrative leadership across our municipalities. The fourth mandate is the support and advice that we direct to municipalities. Number 5 is strategic profiling, where we are looking at building the image of local government. And then lastly is the knowledge and information sharing mandate, meaning creating platforms for knowledge exchange and sharing of experiences across and between municipalities. Now, as we execute these 6 mandates, Honorable Chairperson, it should be noted that we are mindful of the fact that within our space, there are many role players, whether it is national or provincial government departments, whether it is academia, whether it is state-owned entities, but there are a lot of those that play in our space. And as we execute these 6 mandates, we do so in many instances in partnership with others, so that we also tap into capacity that exists elsewhere, but leverage on resources that could be made available to drive any of these 6 mandates. So there's a strong collaboration and partnership approach that we indeed take in executing our mandate. The National Conference of Salga in 2022 March adopted a 5-year strategic framework, which was then converted into a 5-year plan, which started in 2022 and will conclude in 2027. And that plan has 6 outcomes. And what the slide represents are those 6 outcomes. And I will speak to this in more detail later on in the presentation. But anchoring the 5-year strategic plan is these 6 outcomes. Because we started implementing the 5-year plan in 2022, we have already exhausted the first 3 years of the 5-year plan. In the year 1, we had achieved 98% of the set deliverables and targets. In year 2, which is the 2023-2024 year, we achieved a performance of 87%. And the year that had just passed, 2024-2025, is still under scrutiny. It will be subjected to auditing by the Auditor General, and we would then know what the percentage outcomes of performance would be for the 3rd year. We have started our planning and concluded that planning for the next financial year, which is 2025-2026. That will be year 4, meaning that in our 5-year deliverables, there would only then be 1 year remaining in the 2026-2027 financial year. To date, Chairperson, looking specifically at the 2024-2025 financial year, for Q2, we were sitting at, that's the period July up to September 2024, we were sitting at having already achieved 64% and 28% not yet achieved. We then progressed into Q3, which is the period October to December 2024, and progressed well to a 74% achievement as at the end of October, with then 20% still outstanding. We will still come back once we have finalized our Q4 report. We will then come back to the committee and present our Q4 report and look at it cumulatively, what would have been our achievement for the year in its entirety, 2024-2025. However, what the NEC of Salga has also directed is for us to assess, based on the first 3 years of the annual performance of the 5-year plan, what progress have we made against the 5-year target. So the next few slides literally indicates, based on the target, that 5-year target that has been set to date, what is the progress that we have made? So under the outcome 1, which is Salga as an agile force of influence, there were 4 key outcome indicators. And if you look at it, 2, we are progressing well. 1, we have already achieved. The other one is still work in progress, but we are below the 5-year target. And that relates to membership fees. I'm sure members will recall that when we presented last year, we had indicated that Salga is largely funded by municipalities in terms of its operations. And we had set a target to reduce our reliance on membership fees for the 5 years to 80%. We are currently still sitting at the 90%, meaning that in the remaining 2 years of the 5-year plan, we need to reduce that 90% to get us to 80% reliance on membership fees. So that's an area that we will continue to work on over the next year or 2. Under the second outcome, which is outcome 2, customized innovative solutions, there is one key outcome indicator around the digital maturity levels. We are progressing quite well after we look at the consolidated performance to date, but we still need to get ourselves to a level 3, but there is good progress made, and this will remain on our radar and will still be part of our annual performance plan for the 2025-2026 financial year, as well as the 2026-2027 financial year. The third outcome, a capable and repeatable local government, 3 outcome indicators. They are all still good work in progress. So it's sitting at amber. There is good work being done. So this is definitely carrying into the 2025-2026 deliverables, so that we get a 10% improvement on the baseline for the capability index, and for the maturity index related to governance, we likewise get to a 10% improvement baseline. Under outcome 4, which is the effective networks and IGR, it is our role in the IGR space linked quite closely to the lobby and advocacy role. There are 2 indicators. This is work that we have started. We are still in the process of putting together the necessary evidence as outcomes of the pre-assessment conducted. So it is certainly 2 areas that are sitting in red at this stage, but will find its way into the remaining 2 years annual performance plans. The fifth outcome, socioeconomic return, has a single outcome indicator, which is quite loaded, and it links to municipal financial sustainability. There is good work that has been done in the space. We are still marching towards the 10% improvement. We are confident that we will be able to achieve this target, but it remains on the radar screen and will be included as a key deliverable in the 2025-2026 year. The last outcome, which relates to developmental local government for global competitiveness, there are 3 outcome indicators. 2 of them, good progress is being made. The last one, which links to the improvements on municipalities implementing climate change mitigation. It's an area of work where we are still in the pre-assessment, and we need to get the evidence that would then give us an indication where we find ourselves in the 5-year period of implementing this particular indicator. So certainly an area that will be on the radar screen in the remaining 2 years of the 5-year plan. So when we overall look at our 5-year strategy implementation, we are currently comfortably sitting at 71%, with 2 years remaining, but also without the 3rd year, which must still be subjected to audit. We're sitting at 71%, and 29% is lagging behind. So meaning that there would be a very strong focus in the remaining 2 years of the 5-year plan on the 29% of the indicators that are lagging behind. As we prepared to develop our annual performance plan for the 2025-2026 financial year, of course, we were mindful of the 29% that remains outstanding and lagging behind, and it would get priority so that we do execute the deliverables in the 5-year plan. We have in addition there to also gone back to our member municipalities and ask them the question, what are your needs? So that we can look at, in addition to what is outstanding in our 5-year plan, what needs to be addressed to perhaps respond to the immediate needs of communities. So we did a needs assessment, and the needs assessment in itself, it touched all provinces. It highlighted 9 areas that requires the most support from Salga. So infrastructure management is at the top of that list, and legislative guidance is the last on the list of 9. But you can see the members are there listed: service delivery, capacity building, financial management, human resources, technological support, community engagement, and policy development are the other areas that have been highlighted by municipalities that would require us to direct support to them and assist them in that regard. We've also narrowed it down to a top 3 that would look at infrastructure management, service delivery, and financial management. So all of these needs that have been raised have also been factored into the annual performance plan for the 2025-2026 financial year. And that then, if we summarize it all, Honorable Chairperson, it gives us 85 targets for the 2025-2026 financial year. And we have then taken those targets and we have broken them down into the 6 outcomes. So we can see that outcome 1 and outcome 3 are having the bulk of the targets identified and will be executed linked to those two outcomes. But also you can see that our mandate would include executing the 85 targets across all of the 6 outcomes. So every single outcome is affected through a target that has been set in the 2025-26 financial year. Also, around the 6 mandates that we have as Salga, we can see that a bulk of the focus is going towards support and advice. It is directed, sometimes multidisciplinary support directed to municipalities, 31 targets there, and then around improving the image of local government, 28 targets that have been directed to that particular mandate. We will see later on in the slides, Chairperson, that at Salga we have 5 programs that we are driving, and on the 5 programs, we can see that multi-sectoral support is getting the highest number of attention through the highest number of targets. So directing support directly to municipalities, in many instances in partnership with others, is indeed an area of priority under program number 2. The other one is just an internal packaging of which clusters within the organization will then be executing the 85 targets. As I said, Chairperson, these are the 5 programs that we have, and I will speak to them in a bit more detail in the next few slides. So for each of the 5 programs that we have, starting with the advocacy and strategic profiling program, we have identified key deliverables. So you can see on the advocacy work and the lobbying work, there is already an agenda that has been developed. So we'll be focusing on improving the fiscal allocation, particularly as it relates to bulk. We would be looking at the devolution framework and the urban rail the devolution. We would look at reviewing land transport. Work that is already ongoing as we speak relates to energy reforms as well as the electricity distribution industry reform. So that's going to be a strong focus in the 2025-26 financial year, as well as institutional and funding arrangements around disaster management, fire services, environmental and health management. There would also be a focus, Chairperson, based on the reports released from National Treasury that municipalities are owed in excess of 390 billion rand. There is also a focus on collecting through driving campaigns the debts that are owed to municipalities, with a focus on government, focus on business, but also with a strong focus on households themselves. So those are some of the key things we are going to focus on under program number 1. Under program number 2, the multidisciplinary support, there is going to be a focus on the just transition, as we have done in the past and will continue to do so. There will be a strong focus on oversight in our municipalities, accountability, anti-corruption and integrity management. It is something that has been there on the agenda. We will continue that work into the 2025-26 financial year. We will also be looking at supporting municipalities on the city sustainability program, on spatial planning, on land use management, and also addressing what is increasingly becoming a challenge within the local government's place, and that is unlawful occupation of properties, but also of land, vacant land that finds expression across the country. So those are some of the things we will be supporting municipalities directly on under program number 2. Program number 3, which is employment relations and capacity building, we will continue to drive capacity building initiatives that are directed at both councillors and officials. The work that we've started around the capability assessments will continue into the last 2 years of the 5-year plan, but also we were looking at personal credentials verification and competency assessments that are done related to the recruitment within the local government space. So just some of the examples of the work that we will be doing under program number 3. Program number 4, business and product development. We would be looking at developing a catalog of products and services that could be deployed as alternative revenue streams at the local government level. So specifically directed at municipalities, we will be looking at innovative solutions, but also be looking at supporting municipalities to implement public-private partnerships with a specific focus on broadband. And those are the areas that we are looking at under program number 4. Under program number 5, which is really an internally focused program, the administration, we will want to extend our clean audit status from 12 as we currently stand to become 13, 14, and 15 in the last year of the current 5-year plan. We would want to increase our collection of revenue levels as Salga, but also we will be looking at ensuring that we take a project management approach as we direct support to municipalities, and we continue to ensure that internally we are well geared to implement the annual performance plan of the organization. So those, Chairperson, are the areas that we are going to focus on in our APP. Around the funding, there are 2 slides that I will focus on. The first one is just to confirm what I had said earlier, is that we are very much dependent on municipalities to fund the organization. So in excess of 90% of our funding comes directly from municipalities, and then there are bits and pieces that come from other revenue streams, including the 3.9% grant that we are getting from the National Fiscus. Expenditure, this is the spread of our expenditure. We can see there's a lot directed towards key cost drivers in the organization, and that's an indication of where we are spending our money. So, Chairperson, I did move a bit fast, but I'm mindful of the fact that members have had the benefit of receiving the presentations and would have gone through them, and we are merely coming to recommend that the Portfolio Committee notes our progress in the 2024-2025 financial year, particularly around Q2 and Q3, noting that, and noting the annual performance plan implementation for the first, it's not 4, it's 3 years of the plan, and then lastly, also for the committee to note our budget for the proposed year and the annual performance plan for the year 2025-2026. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Chair. And let's hand it back to you. Part of this conversation, 2025 going forward, as within the context of building capacity, is also agreeing that local government to be reimagined, to be a type of municipal system that you want in South Africa and the association that you want, is to then engage with political parties that are sending councillors into council, running council and municipalities, and how do you then collaboratively work towards making sure that you've got a better system that responds to challenges that we're facing. Thank you very much, Chair. Back to you.
Thank you, Councillor Stofile and Ndate Lance. Members, the presentation has been made and they have covered everything as we were expecting to get to presentation, which is the annual financial performance plan and 2024-2025 second and third quarter financial and non-financial performance reports. Am I right, Councillor Stofile, that you combine the two?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Stofile. I will now allow questions from members as we are now on item number 3, which is discussion. We have Honorable Mtetwa, we have Honorable Van Zyk. Honorable Mtetwa.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for the presentation from President Stofile, and thanks to the presenter, Mr. Joel. I will engage your presentation under the context that in as much as you are Salga, but you are a secondment coming from municipalities, so which means you are still accountable at what is happening at the local sphere by virtue of you being councillors. I identified one of the area which is a major threat in the municipalities across the board. I see them no longer being able to be sustainably run. And my reasons are that from 94, we were sitting at 42 million population. 2025, we're sitting at 62 million population. We have 22 million people who have been added on board into the municipal system, and wherein 92% are Black communities and 8% being white communities. But I don't see any expansion of municipal services as we know these municipalities, because in 30 years, no new municipality was created. And my question then is, what is now preoccupying the municipalities as their driver for their existence? Because in the old order, we are coming from a history of forced removal laws, which were passed by municipalities, municipal bylaws, which were excluding the 92% population outside the central business district of our areas. And you find this 92% staying outside the city, and they are being transported into the towns and cities. And then in their settlement, where they're residing, be it township or be it rural areas, their areas are lacking in terms of spatial development, proper planning, lacking infrastructure, lacking maintenance of whatever existing infrastructure, and lacking access to amenities, which were only accessible to those who are staying in towns and cities. So that in 30 years is still the status quo. After we were forcibly removed out of the town centers, we are still residing where we were forcibly removed outside town. And that issue has never been addressed in terms of onboarding or restoring back those people who were taken out of the economically productive areas in our communities. That for me is a question to you. How are you helping municipalities to attend to that? Two, in the issue of Amakos are crying that they are a major stakeholder in your local sphere where you have autonomy to govern matters, but they are not being taken into consideration when it comes to decision making. Yet they are the landlords in the jurisdictions which you are occupying as municipalities. And are you looking into a dispensation which is going to take on board the plight of Amakosi, where they are integrated into your municipal bylaws, where you are redressing the imbalances of the past in terms of spatial development planning, where they are all thrown out into the far-flung areas, far away from town, where there's no economic activity, where there is also thorny and rocky areas, if not sandy areas where there is no development and proper municipal parks and recreation. Those are also issues that I would like to see. How are you encouraging your municipalities to take into consideration? Another weakness on your part as municipalities, you are hosting mining houses that are mining in your towns, and you allow them to extract value resources in your towns, but those values are not enjoyed in your towns. So we see a town that has a mine is going down in terms of infrastructure, is going down in terms of economy, yet people are extracting minerals out of your town and it's going into the world. So something is not right where your lack of capacity and understanding of Mineral Resources and Petroleum Development Act in terms of local economic development and empowerment of enterprises, and in terms of supplier development. You're losing a lot of money by the capital goods that are being used in the mines but are not being produced in your local areas. And that has been a setback into all municipalities. No municipality is providing the secondary goods that are being used in their mining houses, which is a problem. I also don't see twinning corporations intra-country, which means internally in the country. There are municipalities that should be working together with other municipalities because of value addition and because of the articles that they are producing in this municipality and that, so that we have synergy and growth jointly as municipal towns, because we are sharing certain values, but we are not doing that and we're not taking advantage. The same twinning cooperation, I don't see it happening even internationally. In the case of Newcastle, we've got 54 Newcastles in the world. Out of that 54 Newcastles, the only one is in Africa, and the rest are in the first world countries. But we are not even able to attract investment from those established Newcastles to come and invest in our local Newcastle, which is in South Africa, in KwaZulu-Natal, in Emajuba to be specific, wherein we could have grown that town based on just the heritage. Just next door to Newcastle, you find Utrecht. Utrecht is also sharing the same name as Netherlands. Utrecht, which is a metro city in Netherlands. But we are not tapping into that resourcefulness in terms of cultural exchange and twinning cooperation to ensure that we build value for those towns. Because currently, Utrecht and Newcastle are facing a collapse. Utrecht is going to have a closure of the last bank that is existing there, which means the entire town will be unbankable, and then they have to rely on Newcastle. And Newcastle is also facing closure of ArcelorMittal, which once it closes, I'm told it is being sustained, but it employs a lot of people, which can also become a distress for the municipality if we don't attend to that. And on the just transition issue you've just raised, I want to put it on record. The just transition is a lie that was sold to South Africa in order for their minerals to be taken into established economies. In KwaZulu, to be specific, in Richards Bay, we are sitting with long lines of trucks loading minerals of the mines that we were told under just transition to close down, to embrace a green energy production, yet the same minerals are being produced and are going to the same countries that have told us to introduce a just transition. So we need to reverse this thing because it is actually plundering our own mineral resources, wherein we cannot add value. Had we added value on our minerals and internally utilizing them, we will derive more value because those who told us about just transition are using the same raw material, which means indirectly we are still suffering from environmental degradation as a result of them wanting these minerals. But they're telling us we must close down and just embrace these few couple of billions, which we cannot redirect back into our new economies. And that is a problem. My last point, it is that of MISA. MISA is sitting with the skill set of engineers to do capital projects in municipalities. But I can tell you for the record, at home in Amachuba, our roads internally that are going into the interior of the townships and in the town center, we are sitting with potholes. So the question is whether our municipalities are failing to attract MISA or MISA is not looking at certain municipalities. That is the problem that we need to address too. And another point, the clean audit versus less development. This one is a contradiction. You have Western Cape municipalities receiving clean audit, but the same Western Cape, I see less development in Black communities. Your Langa, your Kaelicha, your Kala townships, no development, zero development, shacks right next to us at the airport. They've been there from my schooling days in 96 until today, those shacks are still there. So I wonder, how does the city of Cape Town receive a clean audit on their development service delivery, yet there are gray areas where they can't account for its development, or at least for about over 24 years. And yet you are getting a clean audit. And then the last one, CWP, is a mess and is affecting municipalities. And I don't see you attending to it. As we speak, we're sitting with a case of a lot of CWP workers being fired, giving letters by end of May. They will be losing their employment in 7 provinces that have reported, obviously including Eastern Cape and Northern Cape, though they're excluded from the 7 provinces, which means we'll be sitting with a crisis in May end of May. We need to attend to this thing urgently and call upon all the officials responsible for CWP program, because they're firing people, they can't account for their development, and they can also absorb them because there's no more money. Please attend to these matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Marina van Wyk will be followed by Honorable Buthelezi, Honorable Mkhalidi, and Honorable Labiskachne. Honorable van Wyk.
Thank you. It's Honorable van Zyl, not Honorable van Wyk. Honorable van Wyk, I don't think is on this meeting today. Thank you for the presentations by Salga. I've got a couple of questions, and I'll start with the performance and accountability, which is amongst your first slides. And Salga says that 71% of its strategic plan is on track. And I'm speaking about the 2022-2027 strategy, that 5-year plan that Mr. Joel was speaking about. A lot of the performance indicators are still very low or in the pre-assessment phase, and that I think is a lot. It should actually be quite a bit concerning. So I'd like Salga actually to say what the how they will rectify that with less than 2 years to go, or 2 years to go. Then how do you actually measure impact on municipalities, not just these internal outputs? I'd like to see that, because as we've noticed, and I think 8 out of the 9 provinces of this country can say that, you know, local governments at a complete collapse. Then under financial viability, Salga wanted to reduce reliance on membership fees to 80%, but it's still stuck at 90%. So what's really being done to diversify this revenue? Then another one under financial viability is there a plan to cut administrative costs while improving productivity? Because we we've seen quite a hefty bill in salaries, etc., etc. Then under capacity and governance, can you give examples of municipalities that have genuinely improved governance or competency thanks to Salga's support? I'd like us to maybe get a report on that, or if a couple of examples can actually be say. And then I think there was it was mentioned a competency assessment, I think it was slide 22 or 23. What are the consequences if a municipality fails the capability or governance maturity assessments? I'd like to know what gets done there. Then how does Salga ensure its financial planning support actually translates to better financial sustainability for municipalities? And what are the biggest barriers to service delivery you've identified, and how are those being dealt with? Then just lastly, quickly, or second lastly, climate change projects are mentioned, but what's the funding model and how are they monitored? And then I think slide 22 or 23 spoke about this. There's a couple of, I think it was program 2, the multidisciplinary support, where it spoke about small town regeneration, improving business climate, etc., etc. But then it goes on to say support municipalities to address the indigent policies, municipal price increases on bulk water and electricity tariffs. I've got specific question about the indigent policies. How do you actually improve that within municipalities? Because we know an indigent policy is one of the most important cornerstones of a good financially viable municipality, to know where your indigent support should be going and being able to fund that. But also I'm interested to say, to understand what you mean by the support for municipal price increases on bulk water and electricity tariffs when things have become so very unaffordable for residents. If that could be unpacked. Thank you, Acting Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. My sincere apology, Honorable Fanze. We'll now go to Honorable Buthelezi.
Thank you, Chair. And also I will start by thanking the President and his delegation, the President, for having given us the presentation. The one really key concern for me in trying to understand, I hope that now with this meeting, maybe the President and his colleagues can enlighten me. I've always wondered at what point does Salga carry reprisals in terms of failure of the municipalities? Because if you think about it, the failure or success of the municipalities should really be synonymous with the success of Salga if you think of the support that they are supposed to give. For instance, I would be interested to know whether when you look at KPIs of Salga, I mean, these features in terms of the ticking the right boxes in service delivery in the municipality. I think that for me, this is really the main question. I've grappled with it for some time, even before I was in this committee. And then also where, it was shown on the graph that 20% has not been attained yet. As they are working on the 20% to achieve the deliverables. I just wondered also, because I think that there is no argument that, different services impact communities differently. For instance, you could have all the boxes, just as an example, many boxes ticked. But if water, for instance, is still sitting in that 20% as an example, then I think we have a very serious problem. So I just wanted to understand whether, from a point of view of Salga, besides just ticking the list that they have of deliverables, do they also look at this in terms of looking at the success or failure, in terms of the impact? Because to me, that counts a lot. And then maybe the one that my colleague Tetra has touched on really, I find the silence deafening, really, in terms of a clear-cut, comprehensive strategy of Salga as far as traditional leaders are concerned, not just now, generally. I don't know whether I could be enlightened, we could be enlightened as to what are their interventions, because the one thing that is so, it's pointed out all the time, we pointed it out also yesterday and before, is that, Amakosi have thousands upon thousands of people sitting under them and in their areas. So there is no way in which they'll be allowed to fall in the crack in terms of helping service delivery. And we know that they've now been allowed to participate in councils, but it's undefined. We asked that we won't go into it. We are waiting for feedback for that in terms of roles, duties, and responsibilities of Hamakosi. But anyway, I would leave it at that, that I find it very silent, and I think it's a very important area in terms of helping service delivery because of the people, thousands and thousands who are sitting under their areas. CWP was already asked on. Madam Chair, I will thank you for the opportunity. I'll
Recording
pause there.
stopped.
Thank you, Honorable Buthelezi. Honorable Mkalipi.
Chair, before I even start talking, I just had to a recording stop. What does that mean?
Javin, can you please check with us?
Recording in progress.
Nazo, Chairperson. Thanks, Chair.
Sabotaged.
Yeah, sabotage by new Chair. Chair, Honorable Buthelezi was greeting his president. I assume that he meant the minister. If the minister is here on the platform, greetings to minister and your team. Thanks for the opportunity for the presentation as well from Salga. But I just want to ask just a few questions from Salga, because when they talk about the prioritization, they have priorities that they want to intervene on the municipalities. Is it genuine? My question linked to the issue of funding, because I know for the fact that they are also depending on these municipalities that they need to intervene when there's a problem, especially in the issue of capacity. And this is not the first time, Chair, we raise this issue of capacity on municipalities. Even Salga themselves, they even gave us a report that suggests that councillors, those councillors who have matric and those who does not have matric, as a result, they are not going to assist us in terms of building the municipality. So therefore, my question is that if you depend only on the funding from the municipality, can you be able to intervene genuinely? Can you go to eThekwini and say to the mayor, hey, do this, do this, do this, I'm coming with this proposal and this program is Salga? Or they are going to tell you, they're just going to tell you, hey, we are not going to give you that money because you are coming here with that boss tendency. So I want to check with Salga, or do they have any means of fundraising instead of relying on municipalities? Because to me, Chair, I think it also compromised them. That is one in terms of the capacity. So I want to check the success stories in terms of capacity, if they can share with us, because this is not the first indication in their APP. Is their backbone the issue of capacity to intervene on those municipalities? So how far do they go, and do they have success stories? Because while we are sitting here, there is no success story, not from Salga, but there is no joy. We are not happy about the state of local municipality in the whole country. Even if they are not categorized in terms of a dysfunctional municipality, no municipality that is 100% functioning, including those of the DA that they always claim in the Western Cape. But when you go down and ask people, there's no 100% municipalities that is functioning. So therefore, I just want to get their success story and how do they measure their APPs. That is two. And then, Jay, I just want to confirm in terms of the official sign of this document. Is it an official sign off one, President and CEO lands? Because on the APP, and this represent uncertainty as whether this is the entity official and final APP or a draft, because there's no official sign off on the APP. Can you clarify us so we can know? In the morning, we didn't know as a committee, shall we continue with this meeting because of what happened? The minister released a statement at 12 midnight. We don't know if we are doing the right thing when we proceed to engage with Salga. Now we are also tabling and official. I don't know if it's official or it's not official because there is no sign off. And when it comes to local government, there is a court case that has just been pronounced by the Constitutional Court. And I remember very well, even Salga was part and parcel of contributing to that case that has been declared unlawfully, because we took a decision as a committee to say no leadership must occupy a high position in the
Mkalipi, you've muted yourself.
Honorable Mkalipi, you are muted.
Oh, sorry, Chair. No, I wanted to check what is their view in terms of the court case that has been declared unlawfully by the Constitutional Court, because we were together and all entities, especially Salga, also contributed to that amendment that we did as a committee, where we were worried about political parties who are also part and parcel of officials, senior officials in the municipality. So what is your view about that? Because that thing must come to the committee, and how are you going to assist the committee? The local government one, Chair, even in this morning, in the programming committee, we raised the issue after the APP of the department was presented here, and our frustration was that this local amendment bill, local government one, is taking too long. In fact, all other amendments that's supposed to be intervening in the state of our municipalities are taking too long. That one that was presented by the department, they started the process in 2024, and then they are telling us in their EPP that the working group, it was introduced to the minister in 2024, and in the 2025, the working group is going to also present their view. It takes a year for the working group to present their view on this thing. And according to their plan, this local government amendment bill is going to be dealt with in 2028. In fact, in 2027, they are going to start the process of parliament. And after that, it's going to go back, back and forth. So therefore, I know they have also researchers, Salga. How can they help us? Because this is unacceptable for the committee, because even the local white paper that Salga was part and parcel. So we want to understand if they also have any view in terms of that white paper, because in terms of page 47 of the APP, you as Salga was unable to implement the clause in the local government white paper that encourage the organization to raise its funding through the service, and it also linked to my earlier points. And this thing of the white paper, Chair, is coming back to haunt us. If you remember very well, when we were doing the oversight in Mangaung, the Speaker of Mangaung, instead of addressing the issues that we were raising in the Mangaung, he lectured us with this white paper. So therefore, we must also know our story as a committee. So people like Salga, they are going to help us to have a way forward in terms of these challenges. Thank you much. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mkalipi. Honorable Labukasne.
Thank you very much, Chair. A lot of questions that I wanted to raise have been asked, so I'm just going to focus on the few that's left. Thank you very much for the presentation. I want to start off with two questions on the new indicators, or actually the new performance areas, which is improve private business investment in municipalities, and the one on climate change. Now, the first thing that I have a problem with is to say this is a new key performance area, but there's actually no indicators, there's no measurement, there's nothing. So it doesn't tell me anything except for the intention, or of the intention that you're going to do it. There's nothing telling us who's going to do it, where is it going to be done, when is it going to be done, and how is it going to be measured. And then also a part of that is I see that climate change is also one of the new measurement, or the target key performance area. We've had the plans from MISA yesterday, and they also have a new indicator on climate change. So I would like to know, do you, Salga and MISA, speak to each other? Is it the same kind of target? Is it the same kind of work? Is it going to be for different municipalities, the same kind of municipalities? Because it's impossible, or in light of the fact that, budget is tight, and there's a lot of work to be done. I don't think it would be ideal for both, for Salga as well as MISA as the implementing agent to focus on the same thing. So, Chair, I would like us, Salga, to give us a breakdown for these two new indicators. I would like to know, on the improve of the business investment. I would also like to know if Salga is of the, from my point of view, if business will invest in municipalities where they know that the basic services are delivered and things are working. Otherwise, it will be very, very difficult to see that businesses are going to invest in municipalities that are failing. And do you address that in this KPA as well? Because I can't see it. Then I want to focus on the target breakdown slide, the slide number 17 of 35. And, maybe it's just that I'm not so used to that kind of target breakdown, but in all these sectors that you addressed, it mentioned various things, but I added up. I did my some calculations there, and if I put wherever I counted them, it stays 92 targets. So I get it that it is 92 targets on all these programs, whether it's in addressing the mandate or a specific area or what you call them, it's cross-referenced, but it stays 92 targets. If I'm wrong, I would like you to just clarify that. Now, out of these 92 targets, I looked at the previous year's targets, and there were around about 90 targets, and out of that 90 targets, a lot of them, 18 that I could have counted, has not been done, and 6 were not applicable at some stages. Now, to me, it's worrisome if to have a breakdown like that tells me a story, and it seems to me the story that you would like me to know, but it doesn't tell me the real facts. Because when we come down, when you start telling the facts and saying these are not met in those pie charts, and the reasons you gave, it says you have a capacity problem, and that's why a lot of these targets are not being reached. And then you say poor prioritization and poor execution as part of 3 or 4, and poor response rate from municipalities. Now, to me, it's a very, very big concern. Salga, as the organization that says we lobby, we increase our advocacy in our lobby, we do this, we do that. If you cannot prioritize, and that is one of the reasons why you fail to meet your targets, and you have a problem with poor execution, my question is, how effective and efficient are you then in trying to teach and help and support municipalities in doing so? So I would really like to get some more clarity on that, and a better breakdown and of this. And my guess at this stage is you can have key performance areas, but if you don't have absolutely measurements on how, where, who, and what is measuring them right from the beginning, you will fail. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Let me also acknowledge the presence of our DMs who are part of the meeting, DM Benson Ngamashe and DM Masemola. So I will now give Honorable Councillor Stofile and the team to respond to the questions that have been asked. Councillor Stofile.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. I'm audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Let me also join you in greeting the Dr. Massimula, the DM, Cooperative, and DM, Cooperative Governance, Traditional Affairs, Benson Amash. I will take some, and I think I will take those that I believe are gravitating towards policy politics, because policy and politics are twin brothers of the same coin in terms of achieving certain objectives that the country have set for itself. And then other questions will be then answered by Lance or Sitole, the CEO, because both of them, they're in the platform. Let me probably start with the Honorable Lopez Cachne. It has been our experience, Honorable Lopez Cachne, that since the time in memorial of the South African Local Government Association targets that we set, if you look into the record in your archives, you'll find that Salga has met its objectives because we interrogate the information that has been presented to us prior agreeing in terms of what needs to be done. So you worry about the possibilities of not meeting the objectives or targets that we have set. I think the literature is out there to prove that over a period of time we have seen been performing that task very well. I know that there have been different conversations about the linkage of our achievement of our goals vis-a-vis the performance of the municipalities. And I know it's a debate that at some point in the history, we tried to elucidate that debate so that we clarify the interconnectedness between the association and the municipalities as members into our space. The second question that I would wish to lead in providing answer, and that of course doesn't stop Sitole and Lance if I happen to not to comprehensively deal with those issues, is the issue pertaining to the investment. I think Honorable Lopez Cachna, you will accept my argument that there is no space called national. There is always a space called local. And any investment, being investment that are attracted by the President of the Republic or the Minister Pakstow or whoever minister that attracts investment, it had to take place in a land, in a municipality, in a space called local government. Now, it is then important for local government to propel and prepare itself for that matter. Is doing that local government for two reasons, most probably. I think if I'm not mistaken, is the first honorable that has spoken. I don't know, it's Honorable Butelis. I don't remember the surname. It speaks on two issues. Historically, we are told in South Africa that municipalities are owed ESCOM and water boards. And what is that story is always not complete, is the story not to be told that business, government, and households owe municipalities. They are having a debt that are owing to municipalities. Now, how do you address that? Is to have an agile municipality, a mayor, a face of the institution, become a go-getter and be involved in an investment trade. Because when you invest and create opportunities in your municipalities, you are increasing the possibility of ability of households to pay. The reality of the matter, I know all of us in South Africa talk about indigent. What if the South Africa total population of 64 million, they all become indigent? Your funding formula and process is the ability to pay of individuals, using the electricity and water as an instrument that must generate income for a municipality. What if that group fails to pay? It means there will be no municipality. And that is why then, Salga, it is correct to say part of this engagement is to engage our member municipalities municipalities to use the land that they have, their endowments that they have in the space where they are operating, to agitate for investment, to improve the ability of paying, because we are having a problem. We know the issue of households not paying and government not paying, it's always a problem of municipality. Nobody talk about it, even in whatever parliamentary platform or public platform. Always there is hammer about we failed to pay ESCOM, we failed to pay the water boards, but we have forgotten the value chain of payment in payment system in South Africa that we have adopted as parliament. The payment system in South Africa, it says you buy and you sell. In the process, you put a mock-up so that that mock-up, it funds the individuals that are rendering that service on your behalf. And that is the misnomer that is in the discourse of our legislative framework and discussions insofar as understanding and connecting that when the municipalities claim to be owing ESCOM and Water Board, we don't ask a question, and that is why Minister Water, Minister Electricity, the first thing they jump for is the equitable share, withhold the equitable share or grants to municipality. But we are not interpreting completely the value chain of the buying and the selling and collection in the process. And that is the weakness that probably we have put in some time. And that is why it backs our view that municipalities, as we reimagine the municipal system in South Africa, you need to have an agile leaders that are able to go out to market and make sure that they attract investors to come to their space and invest. We cannot succeed on that, Honorable Lobeskachne, ourselves alone. And that is why we appreciate the collaborative efforts that Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Department is collaborating and working with us in trying to address many of these challenges. And these challenges are right at the doorstep of a municipality. And these challenges can only be addressed by being innovative, but also put plans together in responding to challenges that our people are facing at the community level. And that is our approach with regard to this matter. And we believe if the department, if the portfolio committee and everyone can give that support, that we cannot forever whinge about how collapsed and how bad municipalities are without generating ideas and views that are linked into business-like. I think you will know, Honorable Labesnacha, in business, you inject resources in your business for your business to succeed. If your business doesn't succeed, then you won't inject any resources into it. And that is the approach that Salga, working together with its member municipalities, educating one another about our responsibility as public representative in the local state. It's what is required out of us. Part of that is to contribute in the changing of the economic situation of the community in the area. With regard to some of the issues raised by Honorable Mkhaliphi, white paper, yes, Honorable Mkhaliphi, we are participating to it. For instance, Salga is one of the co-chair. What I will plead on behalf of the sector, Honorable Mkhaliphi, is to plead that please ask government to commit into this program. And this program is not a COCTA program. It's a government as a whole. And that is why government, through you as a public representative representing constituencies where you come from, you know the conditions of these communities. And that is why you had to have an interest to have debate and discussion about a white paper that is going to be responsive into local community challenges. Unfortunately, in the launch of this committee, which we are co-chairing, unfortunately, National Treasurer is taking backseat, and it's a parliament. I mean, they are accounting to parliament, and if you agree about reviewing a white paper, which we have made a lot of noises over many years about the review of white paper and its weaknesses, the reality of the matter is that we will never come out of these processes with the concrete issues that need to be factored into the white paper. And my plea on behalf of the sector that I'm leading is that please, Parliament, help us on this. Those that's supposed to play a role, let them play a role. For instance, if you look into the white paper made a tremendous assumptions, very big assumptions, that the economy will grow, the population will be able to pay for services. The reality of the matter, the literature outside there, it's showing that the economy is not growing, is stagnated. At least there is no really quality services that is going to our people, and therefore they can't pay our people. That is the biggest problem that we are facing. And we are requesting that Parliament, as the representative and voices of the people in communities, help us on this. We need this matter to turn the corner and relook into the funding model. And let me tell you, Chair, this issue. You know, the biggest problem that we are making as a country generally, and this is coming from us as Salga, is that we put a process of review of white paper. And we touch base in terms of the what to call it, what it should be possibly looked into the funding model. But here's the issue. Simultaneously, government, the same government, single government, Chair, single government. The single government then, as it runs to review the white paper, it runs through Minister of Water, Minister of Electricity, of taking away the trading services of municipalities. It's a chaotic thing, really. It's not coordinated properly by government, by Parliament that is leading us and leading the country. And now, if in the middle of review of white paper, you take and threaten to take the water supply, the electricity supply, in the white paper, it says 90% of your collectability ability, it will come from these two trading services. And then we are taking it away. Are we not participating in collapsing the municipalities? And so that we say, once again, we added more on dysfunctional municipality. I think to me, there is no coherent approach on these issues. And that is why we're talking about Operation Vulindlela. But if you look into it, the rest of the matter, the gunning is about taking away the trading service. That is not correct generally, and run parallelly with the process of reviewal of white paper. It's a very dangerous trend that we are moving towards as a country led by yourselves as Parliament. And that, Chair, it goes to this issue. I think the first speaker hit it on the head, this issue. There are different IPP programs that have been introduced by Parliament, by Act of Parliament, executed by Executive. And the roof solar system, and I'm always arguing, Dr. Masimula will always remember this. I always argue always raise it to him as my leader. Why, as a country, seemingly we take decisions standing? Any decision that we take, we don't interpret what it is, ripple effects and the end impact, both negative and positive. For instance, I was making this example in Kokta Minmek. On Kokta bilaterals with Salga. That for instance, take a Tekwini, take Nelson Mandela, take Buffalo City, take Tshwane. These municipalities that I've counted in your head, there is a business model that is operating there, like your Mercedes in East London, your Ford and Volkswagen in Port Elizabeth, your Toyota in Durban, Tekwini, your Toyota in Pretoria and BMW. Here's the issue that members of Parliament must assist us. These municipalities, if their income, it comes from these two trading services. If these two trading services are taken away, what will be their income level, those municipalities? As Salga, what we have done, we've made a study on this, and we put this study into the bilaterals with the COGTA, that this policy choice that we are taking, it hamstrung and killed, destroyed the existing municipalities and add more to the dysfunctional. And I'm not going to be surprised tomorrow when the Parliament as a whole in the country says, once again, Buffalo City has completely collapsed, and once again, Nelson Mandela have completely collapsed, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to be surprised because decisions that we are taking, we are not connecting into the impact that they may do in our communities, and that is the challenge, Chair, and that is what we are requesting. And I think the other issue that was raised by Madam Mkhalipi, our view on the constitutional judgment, on the attempt to professionalize local government. It appears that we are not all the same in the same wave of length of understanding what are the intricacies of that are playing in local government. And we made this point at the argument with the COCTA Portfolio Committee, which is this committee, and at that time it was chaired by Madam, I just forgot, Faith Mutambi. That the difficulty that municipalities are facing is that a political leader is a political leader into his political party and is employed as a tractor driver into a municipality or a cleaner or an office manager or whatever position. Are we then able to interpret the influence of that political leader to a mayor who happened to be a junior, an official who came through his or her professional ability to municipality? Do we understand the power balance, that power balance can influence that mayor or that municipal manager to pass unfunded budget? Seemingly, when we do these things, we don't take into account these issues. That is why earlier on in my presentation, I said, part of our focus 2025, we decided in 2023, we need to focus and engage political parties because you may fight until your hair come gray. If we don't internalize politically in the political parties, type and skill that you deploy into a municipality as a speaker, as a mayor, as a councillor, Salga cannot do anything, unfortunately. And unfortunately, we have been spending money, training, exposing individuals in terms of the functions. But the mandating authority in a legal fraternity is the political party that makes the person to be a councillor. So you need to close that gap and have a conversation along that part. And that is why we have requested Minister Hlabisa in the recent past that in Parliament, on behalf of Salga, I said, as much as I appreciate the President help and work with us in turning local government around, what we will request the President and the Cabinet to do and to work with us is to cut the invisible hand. And nobody asked, what is this invisible hand? And we had just said to Minister Hlabisa, we are willing because it is important, is in the best interest of our country and our nation that municipalities must be functional, must work, must deliver service that is required, but we must also create a space for those that are given a responsibility to be councillors, to be mayors, and so that they can perform their duty. And that is the issue probably that I wish to unearth here. The other issue, Chair, is that the big problems in the municipality are so big, are also created by policy choices. And I've said at one point, and I think MISA coming in, and as I've said, our collaborations, coordination with COCTA helps us a lot insofar as that. One thing that you must never miss in our conversation is that when we established local government system in South Africa, the engineering capacity was at 80-something%. At last 3 years or last 5 years, the engineering last 8 years, the engineering capacity in South Africa was at 0.47%. We're surprised when we see the sewer spillage running because we opened different levers. One of the levers that we have opened and we have created is that you employ an engineer with an engineering degree, qualifications, all sorts of things that he possesses. You employ in the municipality that you cannot pay him equivalent with other engineering capacity. Then you drive away the appetite of engineers to be engineer capabilities to be in that municipality. And that municipality, because for it to develop an IDP, which is the first document that municipality must do, is the IDP. 97% of the IDP, it requires engineering work. And therefore, you depleted the capacity because you pay individuals on the basis of category of municipality. And that is a challenge, and that is a policy choice. It's not a municipal choice. It's not a municipality choice to have that type of an arrangement. It's a policy choice that has been taken by government that is leading our country. And that is the issue that Parliament, it needs to look at. And that issue, it involves, I think it was honorable, the first honorable member that spoke, it involves, for instance, he's making an example about mining. and he's saying we're not collecting or we're not doing anything. It is true. All what you said, honorable member, it is true. But why have you arrived to that point? It's because your policy framing, it doesn't speak to the developmental objectives of local government. And the question, I mean, I can make an example. For instance, I'm going to make this presentation in the review of white paper. The national government, what it did over time, it exonerated itself for paying rates and taxes, whereas they've got properties all over. Municipalities can't collect in those properties. These are the issues that probably they need to be looked at and have an open, frank conversation about it and say, what is the ideal municipality that we want and what is it that it must go with that? And this is what we need to do. And therefore, areas where there is mining activities, they pay electricity, water, and everything to what you call to national fiscus and so on. But it's another debate of another day. Yes, my leader, we are in collaborations with MISA because MISA is an implementing agent of COCTA. So there we have a dialectical relations between and very good relations between ourselves and COCTA with regard to this issue. When it comes to issue of traditional leaders, the issues of traditional leaders, I know probably they may tease this issue, my leaders in the administration. Where this matter of traditional leaders and Salga, it was brought to my attention, and we have facilitated an interaction and engagement between ourselves and traditional leaders. And as a result of that, under the stewardship supervision of the minister, we signed a memorandum of understanding to collaborate, to work together, to unpack how do we relate between ourselves and traditional leaders, because the definition of law, anything that is above ground in South Africa, is located to municipalities. And how do we relate with that? Because there are traditional areas, over 60% of these areas in the hands of the traditional leaders. But how do we then use these together? And we are making an example, members of parliament, and maybe you'll help us on this issue. Those that are living in the area called Limpopo, Polokwane, they will know this. And those that are living in the area in Eastern Cape, as you move out of King Williamstown towards Timbaza and so on, at the outskirts of boundaries of municipalities, and this is the issue that I'm going to raise in the white paper. At the outskirts of boundaries of municipalities, you see new mansions, big houses. You know why? And if you make your own research, the houses that are at the outskirts, in the boundaries, outside the municipal boundaries, in the traditional leadership soil, but managed by a different Department of Land Affairs or Agriculture, whatever the department is, managed there. They are moving away because they don't want to pay rates and taxes. Now, when they build the mansion there, the first call that is going to come to a municipality is to provide a road, because the internal road are supposed to be a municipal road. Where are you going to get that money to build that road? The next call is going to be water, is going to be everything. And I've said in the energy transition, the summit that was convened by President, Ramaphosa, is that we need to improve on collaborations, because there are reasons why South Africa chose to establish Intergovernmental Relations Framework Act and establish cooperative governance. The unfortunate thing, each in the ones that are operating in the space of municipality, they want to compete against one another in the expense of a municipality. And therefore, there is no coordinated, collaborated effort that is put in making sure that the municipality is changed for better. And this is the challenge that South Africans must confront, and we must pull one another. And I'm happy that I'm saying this to the committee that is relevant, called cooperative governance. And it is important to infuse and bring that together to all these that are involved in this situation. And this, to me, it ties back, Chair, to my first point. We can talk about reviewal of white paper. The white paper reviewal, it's solemnly dependent to the commitment of land departments that have direct relations with the municipalities. And unfortunately, we don't see them participating in that discussion. So it will be a futile discussions at the end of the day. I think two last questions, and then I give my leaders. Is the issue pertaining to a clean audit or Salga's role in making sure that municipalities perform the duties that the municipalities are performing, and that is linked to capacity, to training, and so on. If you go to our records, since time immemorial, there are many councillors that have been taken through Salga and officials on the capacity building, in training, in making sure that they are suitable for positions that are appointed. You can train them. It will be just like throwing a duck in the water with the hope that when you hold the duck and stick your fingers in between, you'll get it wet. The reality of the matter, you're not. The reality of the matter, we need to take comprehensive approach on this. That is why, as Salga, we have taken a decision to stick our neck out and engage political parties to play their role in making sure that these matters are dealt with. I'm not sure about the CWP and so on. Of course, we've got relationship with the department, and the department is handling it in the way that is handling it. And I think deputy ministers that are in the platform will be able to talk to that matter. I think Lance Stolle, let me hand over to you to complete the chapter.
Thank you. Thank you very much, President. I'm hoping I'm speaking with the permission of the chairperson of the committee. And good afternoon to all members of the committee. I will hand over to my colleague Lance, chairperson, for him to be able to speak to issues that are related to some of the number crunching that the organization has done when we are continually evaluating our performance as an organization. I do think that, having listened to the response that has been provided by President Stofile, it is quite important for me to share the thinking that the presidency of Salga, including the National Executive Committee, has. The leadership of Salga, and President Stofile does say this in his response, the leadership of Salga is yearning for a conversation, not only with political organizations, but also with the House of Parliament, particularly this committee, in relation to ensuring that we are able to share fully with the committee in such a manner that the committee and others in the sphere of governance begin to appreciate what the president of Salga calls complexity, What our municipalities are dealing with, Chairperson, is complexity. In fact, where we are today as a country and where local government is in the process of seeking to transform itself, what it proves is that local government is taking advantage of the process of reviewing white paper precisely because of the difficulties that local government has had to contend over the last 20 or so years. We do have indications, perhaps when we do, if the opportunity will arise where we come to the committee to share, we have slides that indicate at some point in the first 10 years of local government, there was an upward trajectory of success. But precisely because of the skewed nature of the policies with which local government has been supported with, local government has started to take a nosedive. That does not mean that our member municipalities or the local government sector itself does not have its own challenges. Some of its challenges are about the governance of the institutions. And I think President Stofile also talks about the invisible hand when he makes reference to the fact that a number of the causes of where local government is are not of the making of local government. With your permission, Chairperson, let me just utilize one example, which I think Honorable Mkhaliphi did make reference to. And I think as well as Honorable Laboskachni, when she speaks, she makes reference, the issue of funding. For the past 25 years in the life of transformed local government, our local government sector has been funded or provided support with only about between 9 and 9.5% from the national fiscus. Against the plethora of work that local government has, it has proven totally impractical for local government to do its work. And yes, of course, in part, we also run short of skills because the private sector competes with us. Some of our engineers get stolen easily by the private sector, and we're unable to retain precisely because the funding is not sustainable for local government. Secondly, the issue of climate change, and I think members of committee will notice that most recently, the frequency with which climate change is making our municipalities more unsustainable is on the rise. A typical example of a phenomena that we have studied in the last 2 years is that sandstorms come from the Northern Cape or the western part of the country, increasing the desertification. And in a short space of time between that desertification process, we suddenly see natural fires uprising in the Free State province. And within a short space of time, we will see floods in the Western Cape, the Eastern Cape, as well as KwaZulu-Natal. So effectively, half of the country gets to be impacted upon by climate change. And that on its own requires intervention, technical intervention, yes, but without requisite resources, local government tends to struggle. So I do imagine that at some point, given an opportunity, we should be in a position to find time and share with the committee and speak about the various nuances that we must indicate of what contributes to this complexity. Lastly, one of the things that we are also unpacking as an organization is the fact that the policies of our country, they do not differentiate between the different types of municipalities that we have. The 257 municipalities that are member municipalities of Salga themselves are not the same. And yet, the toolbox that is carried by our policy framework seems not to differentiate between these 257 municipalities, further than adding to the complexity. And it makes it quite difficult. One of the matters that President Stofile is making reference to, in addition to the inability to differentiate how we provide support to municipalities, is the fact that there is a serious country problem which is about the absence of leadership. We will, of course, all the time take responsibility as local government and say, perhaps in the last couple of years, or alternatively, since we gave birth to a transforming local government, we have relied only on the elected local government leader, when in fact, what we perhaps should have pushed for a very long time is a situation where we increase the kaleidoscope nature of leadership, because a mayor on their own cannot govern a municipality if the relationship between the mayor and the business leadership, the mayor as the elected leader working with the non-governmental organization, the mayor working in conjunction with the business community, working with some of the communities, whether it's youth, whether it's women. That is something that we are intending to upscale, because we have realized that it is something that is lacking in our municipalities, and it puts the solutions and the ideation that ought to be taking place at a municipal level to be very much centered around the governance of the institution, when sometimes our challenges are about the business of running a local government. I thought, let me just make that comment, Chairperson, with your permission, so that when my colleague Lance then speaks to some of the technical evaluations of the performance that we are making about the organization, there is an understanding of where and what is the context in which our municipalities are functioning. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thanks, Chairperson. If I could respond to
Mabizela. Let's do the Mabizela.
Honorable Tabos. Honorable Tabos. You can continue.
Apologies, Chair. Sorry, I accidentally removed the mute button. Apologies.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'll just respond to the outstanding questions that were not responded to. Honorable Mtetwa, there are two issues we are going to agree with him with, that he made statements on. And the first such is that there is indeed a need to encourage cooperation and collaboration amongst and between municipalities, particularly municipalities that are beset with very similar circumstances. And the example that was used is, if you have a mining town in Mpumalanga and you have a mining town in Northwest, why would they not have a conversation about how mining impacts on that local area and what they could be doing, what the other is doing quite well, that could be replicated in the other municipalities. So we certainly agree that there is a lot of scope for cooperation between and amongst municipalities. The second one is the issue that was raised on the mining houses and the value that mining houses derive, but in many instances there is very little positive impact and sustained impact on the surrounding communities in that area. The unfortunate reality is that the regulation of mining houses are not a local government function. That function resides elsewhere, and perhaps a conversation should unfold about how best we can address that weakness that remains as we speak. Honorable Tetwa also raised an issue, but more as a statement that the expansion of municipal services are not visible. While in our view, we use the official statistics that are released by the Statistician General, and annually the Statistician General is about to release the next version of what is called the non-financial municipal census. And what it effectively does, it unpacks over the years how municipalities have extended services to their respective communities. Now, the last report that was issued last year, and the ones that was released in the previous 3 years, in fact, paint a picture that municipalities are doing well in extending and expanding services. There may be a weakness around sustaining the provision of services because of lack of maintenance in many instances. But the official statistics, in fact, confirms that the expansion of services continue to be encouraging on the part of municipalities. There was also issues raised by Honorable Van Zyl, and the first such issue is, and the president of Salga responded to it, is of course, as Salga we had presented a 94% and 87% performance in the first 2 years of the strategy implementation. And the question is always, how does that translate to positivity on the part of municipalities, and what impact Salga has? Honorable Mkhaliphi raised the same issue, and there is work that we have done in the year that has just passed. We are just awaiting the auditing process of our performance, and then we will be able to speak on the work that we have done and whether we've been able to achieve that objective. And the idea was really to start measuring the impact of the work that we are doing as Salga, so that we can say we have done A, B, and C, and it has resulted in D, E, and F. And this is the positive impact that it has had. So we ran a pilot in the year that has just passed, and we, as I said, we are collecting the data, but also we would subject it to auditing, and then we would be able to come back to the portfolio committee and reflect on it. The issue of the financial viability of municipalities have been raised, but also and responded to by the CEO. But the issue of the financial viability of Salga has also been raised. It remains a concern for the organization, of course, at the backdrop where municipalities are increasingly having cash flow constraints. We are mindful of the risk that Salga may itself, in the near future, have the same difficulties that others are having, where they are owed by municipalities. And so we have already started work in looking at, I'm also trying to respond to the issue raised by Honorable Mkhaliphi, is that we have started a process to look at alternative revenue streams. When we were last in the committee, we had indicated that there are legislative barriers that were standing in our way. Those legislative barriers are now no longer in our way, and it presents us now with an opportunity to full steam look at alternative revenue streams, but doing so in a responsible way, but also in a manner that would not collapse Salga, where municipalities will then say, well, you are now on your own, because there are opportunities for you to look at alternative revenue streams. So we must avoid rushing it at the risk of collapsing the organization financially. We would have to come back, Honorable Van Zyl, on the examples that you are requested on the capacity and governance that we have done, and what the improvements are. We'll go and find examples for you. And I tried to look as questions were being responded to. I'm not winning, so I would rather do a better job going back and then giving a written response. The question also about on the competency assessments, what happens when the assessment itself puts a municipality below par? What must be done? Well, it's our responsibility as part of our support and advisory role to then package a support mechanism, or package a support campaign that could be directed to those municipalities that are finding themselves below the bar, so that we can then elevate them at the point where they are comfortable and based on a reassessment are finding themselves in a better space. The question was asked also from Honorable Van Zyl, what are some of the barriers to service delivery for municipalities? The President of Salga had gone to town on those, but our strategy itself has also highlighted, and we still sustain that those remain our problems, that we need to address issues of leadership, both administratively and politically in our municipalities. We need to address the weaknesses around the aging infrastructure that is used to deliver services. The inability to maintain that infrastructure impacts on the abilities to sustainably provide services. We had raised weaknesses, as the President of Salga has indicated, on the funding of municipalities, and we also need to address that particular weaknesses. So those are for us stumbling blocks that would all contributing towards the sustainable provision of services across the municipalities. There was also a question asked by Honorable Van Zyl on indigent policies and the tariffs. On the indigent policies, we have realized that the biggest weakness is that the indigent registers, which are a necessity in the municipal space, are not sufficiently updated on a regular basis, or as we would say, on an annual basis, to see that whether some of the people that find themselves on the indigent register have not had improved circumstances that would then elevate them out of the indigent register. So that is not done sufficiently enough. And so we had then taken a conscious decision to assist municipalities in that space. Around the tariffs, Salga has been one of the few that have challenged both the water as well as the electricity bulk tariffs that have been set, because the reality is that the bulk tariffs that are set impacts mostly negatively on municipalities, because they have to pass on that bulk tariff plus a surcharge onto households, business, and onto government. And the higher that tariff is, the more it impacts on the affordability levels of communities. So municipalities are worse affected, and that's why, in the main, we are sitting with the 390 billion rand owed to municipalities because of the inability to collect, where people are just saying the pricing of services have just become unaffordable. Both water and electricity, and it impacts quite negatively on municipalities. So our support has been to fight back, defend municipalities, to ensure that we limit the exposure of these high tariffs on municipalities. But secondly, we have also looked at the surcharge side to ensure that municipalities are also looking at having cost of supply studies that would inform the add-on pricing or the municipal tariffs, as we would say. We would know from the past that these tariffs, municipal tariffs, were largely thumbs up. But now with the introduction of the cost of supply studies, it is a more informed way to determine pricing and what tariffs municipalities should be passing on to the consumer. And that's work that we have extensively done in the financial year that I just concluded. I had responded to Honorable Alipi's question on the alternative revenue streams. On the official approved, from a Salga point of view, Honorable Alipi, we had we from the internal processing at Salga, we had approved, we had submitted to COCTA and to Parliament. We do anticipate particularly on the budget side, based on the introductory statements of the Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, that if there are changes on the budgets that would affect COCTA, it could also affect us based on the equitable share allocation that we receive from COCTA as a conduit from the national fiscal. So if there are changes there, that's where it would affect us. But on the remaining revenue streams of Salga, which is up to their 96%, it would remain unchanged. So, Chairperson, those were the responses on the outstanding issues. Oh, yes, just the last one to Honorable Labuskaghni. I have looked at the slide. I think you were referring to slide 19, 18 and 19. Firstly, the slide with the pyramid, those are not cumulative. That is effectively saying what are our outcomes, what are our programs. We have 5 programs, we have 6 outcomes, we have 85 targets. So it is not adding them together. It's only on the next slide where we are unpacking the targets linked to the outcomes, the targets linked to the mandates of Salga, the targets linked to the programs of Salga, that we have unpacked it and allocated where those targets find expression. It is only under, it all adds up to 85, except on the programs one, it is 86. So we will just correct where there is one that may have been replicated under that. But the rest are indeed correct and adds up to 85. Chairperson, those are the responses. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stofile and Ndate Lance. Colleagues, I'm going to allow you for follow-ups if you have, or clarity-seeking questions. We have Honorable Mtetwa. Honorable Lizzie. Honorable Mtetwa will be followed by Honorable.
Yes, thanks, Chair, and really thank you for the seconds, because exactly I wanted to raise a point which we are not getting an answer from. We are seeing in the 30 years of democracy a mushrooming of whites-only settlement, and this gets approved at the local sphere of government. That tells us that there are elements within the municipalities that are promoting a racial spatial development approach in the name of cultural organization or self-determination, yet we purport to be a rainbow nation where you will only find a certain race residing together. The last time we saw that kind of spatial development planning was the forced removal one, where only blacks were removed outside the centers of the towns. But now we are seeing a reverse where development is taking place. And then another point, in the case of Orania, it has been there for 30 years, but we understand they are not contributing to municipal services in the local municipality where they are residing in Northern Cape. So this tells us to say, what kind of development is this? Are they taking us back? Are they also saying we must do the same as other racial groups? But somebody within municipalities is approving these things. And I know that most of the planning, spatial development planning of municipalities are still run by the same old order engineers who are advancing these trends. And that's the matter. Two, the corporatization of the municipal service is a sore point. In the name of trying to do service delivery, but we are seeing water being balkanized and commercialized. We are seeing waste being commercialized, every of those services, which in reverse are no longer now accessible to those who cannot contribute. That's another matter. What I also find interesting, we spend a lot of money on MISA to do capital projects, but we just can't drill water underground. We can't do water desalination. And whilst we claim to be a water scarce country, we also don't harvest the rainwater that we are actually experiencing in our rainy seasons, which is a once-off kind of procurement. And then after we receive water perpetually. And then in terms of disaster management, it is becoming a permanent feature that we will be experiencing disasters as part of climate change. But in terms of early warning signs, we have not started planning in that direction. Two, I also raised this point in our Build Industry Regulation Council to say they now need to unbundle the manner in which we standardize building standards in South Africa, because the building method we are using of brick and mortar cement, in the advent of disasters that we're experiencing, they are exacerbating the levels of death because of the manner of housing standard and type of technology that we are using. We need to now look at the studies in your hurricane countries where they are applying different methods of building, which is less in terms of weight, that can collapse on people and then lead to deaths. Those are the kind of thinking that we need to be starting to work on and integrate those into our planning cycle. But other than that, we need to focus on the issue of economy. I don't see you, Salga. I thought you will address this point. I've done my calculations. South African economy is controlled by Oppenheimer and Rupert, and they've done that for over 70 years, at least from 1966. And they, in 1988, have been controlling 6,000 companies, Oppenheimer alone. 35 years later, he was still in control last year, February. That tells me that our economy is a monopoly of two racial individuals who are even controlling the state. The reason why you see this type of planning and judicial mechanisms that we're having are not influenced by the willingness of government, but by the guys who are controlling the economy. And they've done that by informing what government must do. Why? Because if the government does not do what they want, they say we will disinvest in South Africa and take our wealth into somewhere else, which means they are threatening the state to run things the way they want. And you need to start thinking differently, because they are doing this just to maintain the status quo of taking care of the only white welfare at the expense of the previously disadvantaged. And we are seeing that being perpetually done. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mteta. Honorable Buthelezi.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I must just start by apologizing that I was battling with the network now and then. So if it was covered, I will accept that. I just wanted to find out, I had raised a question asking at what point does the successes or failures of the municipality, at what point do they become reflective of the impact of the intervention of Salga, especially the areas that are very stubborn, because there are areas which are very, very stubborn in actually improving. If anything, they regress with their intervention. I don't know, that's a question I'd asked, and I was very, very interested to find out what happened. And then the other one also of the 20%, whether they look at their intervention list according to the impact as it affects communities in terms of service delivery. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Councillor Stofile and the team.
I will ask Lance to come first, and then I will conclude, Chair.
Well, Chair, thank you very much to the members for raising those.
This was only increasing.
I did expect that maybe the Salga president in his response touched on Honorable Buthelez's questions, but for Honorable Mtetwa, perhaps we should indicate, Honorable Mthethwa, that the establishment of townships is not a municipal function, not a municipal responsibility. It is a responsibility that resides at a provincial government level, in particular with the department that deals with human settlements. That department is responsible for the establishment of what we call townships or developments. You will recall that in 2022, towards the end of the year, moving into 2023, we had a serious difficulty in Mangaung municipality, as an example, where the provincial government had established a township through the provincial gazette. And as part of establishing the township, it had also allowed the body corporate to execute the municipal services related functions in that township. And we at Salga had a serious discomfort and concern that a constitutional authority given to local government is taken by another sphere of government and allocated to a non-governmental organization. And those were concerns that we had raised, that authority that is given to provincial government impacts on the ability of municipalities to execute their own responsibility. So we do agree with you that we see in many instances that it looks like the privatization of municipal functions, but it is really coming through the provincial gazetting of the establishment of townships. And that matter went to court. Mangaung went with that matter to court. I am not sure what the outcomes are. We will inquire, because it was challenged by Mangaung, and see what the developments are in that space. But we should be very alive to the risk that we have seen increasingly happening, that with the establishment of townships, instead of ensuring that municipalities execute their responsibilities in those newly established areas, they are then allocated to other non-governmental authorities. On the question asked by Honorable Buthelezi, the slide, I hope I'm referring to the right slide, Honorable Buthelezi, where we are saying that on the implementation of the 5-year strategic plan, we have to date achieved 71%, and that there are 29% outstanding. And that 29% would form part of the remaining 2 years of the 5-year plan. So it remains on the radar. We are looking at achieving those in the remaining 2 years of the strategic plan, because what we have done, we have defined targets over a longer period. Where it's for 1 year, we would have executed it in that year. Where it is for a longer year, it would cut across a number of years, considering that it's for a maximum of 5 years that we have said what they are. But in addition to that, as I said in the presentation, to ensure that we not only execute what was determined 3 years ago by our membership, we also on an annual basis go back to municipalities, and because we are a membership-based organization, and ask them, what are your further needs that we need to look at? And therefore, you would have seen that slide, which unpacks other areas that they would require support on: infrastructure management, financial management, etc. So those are the additional areas that we would be looking at. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Ntate. Councillor Stofile.
No, thank you very much, Chair. I think Lance has covered the question. I think Honorable Mthethwa, what he is raising, it resonates within the spirit of cooperative governance. The mushrooming that he's seeing in the eyes of, or in his eyes, it appears as if it should be a municipal function. But the way that the powers and functions are demarcated by the members of parliament themselves, it gives no space or little space for local government to participate. I think his concern is a reflection of the lack of cooperative governance. And I'm happy that he is picking up as a member of the Cooperative Governance Portfolio Committee. How will the left hand not know what is the right hand doing? And that was the intention of the cooperative governance, which unfortunately, practically on the ground, that is not what is happening. What is happening on the ground, it's a big brother, big sister type of a relationship, which is not working. And that is why probably, I think you will know and read as members of parliament, our issue with the Department of Water and Sanitation with regard to tariffs, with the increasing cost of living and many other things, and then expect municipalities to perform miracles and then collect, whereas you allow the boards to increase above inflation, increase, and water ultimately is going to go to households and so on. So you will understand the complexities of our relationship, and which is a little bit unfortunate, though, because government, the biggest problem that we are having probably in South Africa, we adopted a constitution that talks about spheres of government and allocate functions. And if you look into constitution, what are the functions of municipalities? Are functions that derive from constitution. But what you are then seeing over a period of time is that the other spheres, disrespecting the cooperative nature of our governance, does things that probably offends the same constitution that it says you are three spheres, this is your mandate, this is what we require. We expect, and I direct you as the constitution, that you are bound to work together for any development that takes place in a municipality. Is a level of understanding, I think, to me, in terms of what is enshrined in the constitution and how to factor it into our operation as the three spheres of government and operating in the space. And to me, it's a debate and discussion probably that the members of parliament, when they have time, they need to reflect to it and say, how best do we deal with this issue? And I think Councillor Mteto, Honorable Mteto talks about Rupert and whatever at the economic level. And I think there's a department deals with Minister Parks, Tau, and the economic development. In the value chain, municipalities are recipients of the investors. And that is why, if you see in our slide, we are saying, let us be a go-getters. Let us go and get investors, because sitting idling, waiting for somebody to bring investors into our fold is not going to be beneficiary to us in terms of our ability or ability of our households, our customers, paying what is due to us. So we are trying to find a way of fostering what is the constitution is saying. We need to collaborate. We need to coordinate our activities, because the constitution have foresaw that the ultimate end beneficiary or end participant in the process is the households. So whatever that you do as government, it must be in the best interest of the households. And this is the fight and battle that we are having with the departments and various departments that are doing business in the municipalities, and unfortunately using municipalities as a conduit to get money into households, which municipalities, they don't have money, literally. If you look into the recent allocation over a period of time, it will tell you that the allocation to municipality has been substantially reduced. And because the expectation is that 90% is going to come from households, yet the 46% of the constitutionally assigned functions to government as a whole, 100% of it, 46% is performed by local government. And how do we then connect these together and talk about a proper way of having resources properly that are allocated to municipalities? I won't deal really, Councillor Mteto, you'll bear with me with the issues of privatization and so on and so on. This is our battle with the Minister responsible water, and we hope Cooperative will help us on this. And it seemingly, Steve Biko once wrote that black men, you are on your own. So municipalities are their own. When boards increase money, we all clap hands in parliament. When municipalities increase money, they're taken to court. Ratepayers Association saying them. So because we are unable as a government to act as a single unit that is responsible to perform duties in the best interest of our communities. Really what we are saying as Salga, we as an association of member municipalities informed by the mandate of the Constitution of Salga, but also mandated from time to time by member municipalities, we are requesting that Parliament, it must work with us in addressing the challenges that our people are facing every day. And all of us, we had to use the law to foster ourselves to work together in addressing the challenges that communities are facing as a single government, but with the different spheres, with a different mandate that are expected for us to perform these duties in addressing the challenges that we are facing. Yes, on the issues I think Lance have covered, we are doing a lot of work when it comes to issues of disaster, interacting with various municipalities. They've given us a mandate, for instance, in the recent interaction, Chair, on the water summit that was organized by Minister of Water. We can't agree. We can't agree because ultimately, at the end of the day, the person that is going to be transferred that cost to is the household. And in the households that are struggling today, if you unbundle the 390 billion that is owed to municipalities, the bigger portion comes from households. And now if you increase this, it means you must perpetually increase the envelope of the debt that is owed to municipalities. And these are the complexities of local government and government generally in South Africa, and it requires at least leaders in parliament that are making laws also to be considerate of issues that affect the poor person walking on the street somewhere anywhere in the country. It could be in KwaZulu-Natal, could be in the Cape, Western Cape, or whatever province is. But what does this policy mean to that person on the street? It says. So I think that is the issue. I think the Honorable Buthelezi, I think Lanche have responded to that. We have attempted to respond earlier on, but it is simplified now in the response. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Stofile. Let me now give DM Benson Ngamashi to make a remark. DM.
Thank you very much.
Colleagues, am I the one who's missing DM?
We are all missing.
Honorable Chair, members of the Portfolio Committee, President.
It seems like we're losing DM. Let me give.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are, DM.
Okay. Thanks very much, Honorable Chair, honorable members, President of Salga, and its leadership. Let me also acknowledge my colleague, Robert's Deputy Minister, Dr. Masemula, and the team. I think there are three issues I would like to talk to, as were raised by honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, in particular, Honorable Mtetwa and Honorable inkosi yesizwe uButhelezi. Let me start with the issue of a traditional leadership, the extent to which there's a role played by the institution in municipalities, and what is Salga doing in terms of ensuring that that role gets its significant prominence. Maybe let me start by saying the Municipal Structures Act, in terms of Section 81, does make provision for traditional leadership to be part of councils. However, in a limited, or rather with a limited role, in that traditional leaders do not vote. And as I said in one of the portfolio committees, that perhaps it should be a policy choice that would be made as to whether traditional leaders royalties, or they are of a nature that they have not been sufficiently conversed with communities who will eventually be affected by those decisions. Then traditional leaders can raise an issue of saying these matters must be referred to communities because we come from these communities. Such consultations were not undertaken or were not sufficiently undertaken. So these are the policy choices that we can make. Now, with the amendment of Section 81, through the enactment of Traditional and Coherent Leadership Act number 3 of 2019, which has reduced significantly the participation of traditional leaders. This has actually affected the extent to which the institution does play that role in the municipal space. However, now that Hitler has been invalidated by the Constitutional Court and the process of amendment has since been initiated, I suppose the role of the portfolio committee would be significant in ensuring that communities who contribute in ensuring that such amendments which constrained the various functionalities of the sphere, then such will be attended to in terms of that legislation. Secondly, the issues around the land. I'm sure we are all aware of the fact that the precarious tenure security system in communal areas creates some difficulties in terms of entering into meaningful partnerships. Because, for instance, TICLA which is your Traditional and Khoisan Leadership Act, does make provision for partnerships with different spheres of government, more particularly the municipalities. Now, with the precarious tenure security system, it may not be so easy. And as we all know that land reform matters, they remain the competency of the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development. And I can indicate to the portfolio committee that the department, through the ministry, they are in a process to expedite tenure security legislative instrument to the extent that it will empower communal areas. So again, inter portfolio committee meetings may be helpful in ensuring that the impact of what has not been done by another department, it is brought to its attention by another portfolio committee that is directly affected. And I think if it can be promoted, assist processes to make sure that ultimately we create an environment where all of our communities are able to benefit, are able to participate, and of course, are able to see the fruits of being in a democratic system. Thirdly, this also has a direct bearing on the ability of municipalities to generate own revenue. Because with a precarious tenure security system, it has a direct bearing on Section 229 of the Constitution, which talks directly to the ability of municipalities to collect and or make determination in relation to property rates and so on. So without this coherence in terms of legislative instruments talking to each other in line with the provisions of the Constitution, it's not going to be easy for municipalities to achieve certain expected outcomes. And therefore, I want to implore a strong collaboration between the portfolio committees working together with all of us to really expedite some of these functionalities so as to make it possible to see the benefit of a government working in unison, as the president of Salga has indicated in his responses. I think these are the reflections I wanted to make, Chairperson. Thanks very much.
Thank you, DM. DM Dr. Masamula.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. A very good afternoon to members of the Portfolio Committee, the President of Salga and his delegation, and as well as my colleague Uchawe Uzuliajik. I would as well like to appreciate the report that Salga presented to this meeting, obviously, giving an account of their work. I think just a few points on my side to appreciate the report as presented, but also see how some of the concerns raised could be well handled. I think the first one is that we quite honestly are fully conscious of the fact that the white paper review policy process is very complex, but a very good undertaking on our side as a sector broadly, so that we can be able to determine the next policy horizon into the future on how do we want to see local government being modeled in the country beyond our being here as a leadership probably. And very seriously is about how do we take into cognizance the concerns that Salga raised in relation to the process itself, that before we could publicly pronounce our intention to have this policy review with the concrete concept documents that have just been published through a government gazette awaiting cabinet decision. There has been processes in government around Operation Vulindlela, which obviously had its own life and processes. At the point where we are, Chair, we strongly are working hard to see a possibility of aligning the two processes so that we can be in a better position to dovetail these two policy intentions on how we could then strengthen the system as we finalize the policy process towards its finalization. So I want to just put that matter on record that we are trying to see the extent to which we can align the two processes. And I think it's a very important thing to do so that there is certainty, there is understanding, there is harmonization of these policy intentions. It's what we are trying to work on. The second point is with regard to what the president of Salga referred to as an invisible hand, which obviously does, to a large extent, impact on the lives of our municipalities. And to the extent that at times we use administrative processes to want to address deep-seated fundamental political problems, which obviously negates the same institutional instruments that seeks to want to stabilize municipalities. It's a matter that we are very much alive and conscious to. We are engaging with the presidency very closely and see the extent of possibilities of political platforms to have a conversation amongst ourselves as political social formations in society represented in parliament and in many areas of governance at the municipal level. So it's a matter which I think we are quite aware of as a department and as the ministry. The third point for me, obviously, Chair, it's what Ochawe has just commented on, which we will have to find a way to answer some of these matters as we move forward and try to finalize this policy process around the actual role of traditional authorities within the institutions of our government, particularly at the municipal level. At the moment, with regard to the constraints, which obviously Section 81 brought, was a matter of a numerical constraint, which is not, for me, a very big problem, which could be attended to as a matter of a reality so that those numbers can be adjusted as we move forward. But there is a fundamental policy matter that we've got to answer, and I don't think it's going to be answered in a very simple manner. It will require this process as we review the white paper, but also discuss other related legislative processes resident in other departments, whether we align those matters. And the question obviously would be to say beyond this review process that we are undertaking based on inputs that are going to be made by various communities, including ourselves at the policy level, actually, and the extent of the
the involvement of traditional authorities. We want to pursue an electoral policy matter, which will therefore then determine numbers of traditional leaders in the system, or we're going to pursue a matter that would characterize the system around decision making and in the role clarification about the participation of our traditional leaders in the municipal council spaces. And obviously, those are matters which would have to be discussed. And as my colleague Kao was saying, he was already giving a view of a possibility of one policy, areas that could be provided as clarity in the whole equation, which at the moment is not yet a policy matter. Those are views that would probably emerge in the course of discussions to say, is it going to be an area of interest electorally, or are we going to look at the mechanism within which it will look at numbers, but equally around issues of decision-making of traditional leaders within their participation at the municipal level. And therefore, analyze the whole matter, contextualize it, and do proper comparisons so that we can have a proper and appropriate determination at the end of this process. Obviously, this will seek all of us, including this portfolio committee, because it will be fundamentally be seized with this process, as it will be the recipient of this and the processing platform of this particular policy process. I think that's one matter which still gives us an opportunity to have a much more deeper conversation amongst ourselves. The last point, which I think it will also is a policy matter that will still have to be debated because there's no clarity as things stands for now, is what the president of Salga raised as a concern that if you go to Limpopo, there are villages which you are not sure whether you are in a village or you are in a suburb or you are in a peri-urban area. In fact, one colleague was telling me that as they move around many parts of the country from one province to the other, in some cases you ask yourself, when you are in those areas, it be either in the Eastern Cape, in KZN, in Northwest, in Mpumalanga, wherever, you ask yourself whether you are still going to reach a village or whether you are in a village, precisely because of the extent to which people have been able to develop themselves out of their own economic means that they are able to participate in, and whatever incomes accrues to them from different sources of financial streams and revenues, which is a very good positive matter post 1994 to show the extent to which 30 years into our democracy, our people's lives have been and conditions have been able to improve, notwithstanding the current problems around the economy, and therefore negating all the good things or projecting all the good things that we have achieved over the past 30 years, somewhat. But the fundamental question from what the president is raising is that how do we therefore then relay those areas with the democratization of the municipal institutions and the extent to which, as my colleague Chawa said, begin to have a conversation on the type of the tenure system we want to see in rural areas. And it's a very serious fundamental political question of policy nature, which is not going to be an easy matter, obviously. And let me just give you an example of what I have seen at some point in my other life when I was in the province, in the Department of Public Works, where municipalities wanted to, particularly in the villages, wanted to enhance their revenue collection. And therefore they identified schools, they identified churches, they identified, any other government building in those villages and said, no, this particular property and the value that is attached on this land, obviously in terms of property rates, it could, on the same equivalent with the urban centers, amount to the following rents and cents. And those exercises, from a number of them, amounted to millions and millions and millions of rands. And a very serious confrontation arose between provincial departments and those municipalities to say, how do you charge me these millions of rands on a land which is not a municipal land, but a communal land? Because this facility was built for social services to these institutions and the communities around there. Now, the point there is, whatever tenure system we're going to be discussing, I don't want to give my views now because it's not an issue for now, but just a hint. Do we want to see urbanization of rural communities as we review the tenure system so that we give way for Property Rates Act to be implemented without any constraint, comparatively speaking, with other urban centers? Do we want to subject those areas to modern tenure systems so that they can also be properties of value, rents and cents from a capital point of view, they can be capitalized for wealth of those families, as in relation to the communal interest of those areas and the extent to which their tenure secures their everlasting protection out of their own localities. So there are very issues which arose in the course of those matters, but they are matters of policy discussions which I think we may not have to bog ourselves into those areas of engagement now. But there are hints which obviously are beginning to emerge, but we will have to put them on the table, as Chawe has said, Deputy Minister Ngamase, that there are all those intentions to want to have a discussion on these matters, and they will sharpen as we move forward. But the context within which we're discussing, obviously, as this committee, is the extent to which whatever happens finally will impact on possible revenue streams of municipalities. And as we pursue that, it should be against the tenure system and security of your rural poor who are unfortunately unable to be able to meet certain social demands for their own livelihood. And a proper balance of engagement as we move forward, obviously, those matters will arise. But they form part and parcel of a broader policy discussions in government, but in the immediate, locate some of those that we can process within this space between now and March next year, within the context of this white paper process, as land reform and rural development will also be unveiling its own policy processes. Along the way, these discussions will interface and most probably influence each other as to how best we're going to have a system of local government, which will be much more better moving into the future. What the CEO of Salga earlier on raised on the revenue and the credibility of the national fiscus, I think we fully are in unison with regard to that matter. It's an issue which we just have to, speed up the processes around the discussions that have started between ourselves as COCTA, National Treasury, Salga, and other interested parties, so that that discussion can be able to mature much quicker, even before we finalize the white paper, I suppose, because the white paper implementation, some of its aspects might not be ready for the next round of municipal administration, but the finances cannot be postponed. So the sooner the administrative leadership of Salga through the CEO, the directors general of both ourselves and as well as National Treasury, they've got to be preoccupied with these processes so that they lead and come back to us politically. And to the extent that this committee will therefore then be able to receive such a report that says the deficit out of the fiscus, which is supposed to be given to municipalities, is about 30, 40 billion or 50 billion rands. And this is how this money is going to be secured in the next coming medium-term expenditure period, or the whatever period will have been determined moving into the future. I think for me, those are the few points I thought I would comment on. Chairperson, appreciating what President Stofile, together with his team, brought to the committee for us to continue to sharpen our, understanding and therefore conscientize one another and be on the same, a frequency of understanding and articulation of the matters of the sector, because in any way we are leaders of the sector, and this sector is very dependent on how collectively we advance its interest for betterment of our people's needs wherever they are across the country in their various localities. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, DM. Colleagues, we are now on the last item, which is a closure. Thank you to our DMs, members of the Portfolio Committee, delegation of Salga led by Councillor Stofile, for your active participation in the meeting. Let me also join our colleagues in welcoming the Salga detailed presentations that gives us a clear mandate of what you are doing and what is your mandate in terms of transforming local government. And as the committee, it is our wish to ensure that the weaknesses of our municipalities in terms of service delivery and municipal funding are resolved through a long-term solution, so that we can have our ideal municipalities that are able to provide quality services to our people. We agree that despite numerous interventions in our municipalities, there's still that needs to be done. All relevant stakeholders should be on board. Proper coordination and support from all the spheres of government also plays a critical role in ensuring that we have a better municipalities. Traditional leaders as part of our stakeholders should not be left behind or treated as a by-the-way stakeholders in all the processes of local government. They should be there, they should be incorporated, and they should be heard as part of the stakeholders in local government. And the president of Salga also raised an important matter, which is a cause for concern, the matter of the invisible hand that seems to be part of our challenges on local government. And we need to strongly condemn such behaviors because it's causing us challenges in our municipalities. And we also need to, as the political parties that are here, when we go to local government elections, we also need to ensure that the councillors that we are bringing to our municipalities are the councillors who will be able to add value to our municipalities, because some of the challenges that we are having is because our councillors are unable to hold the officials accountable in terms of what they are supposed to do. So if we choose our councillors, we must also ensure that they are going to assist us in turning around the system. So colleagues, with that weight, I would like to thank you once more. And the meeting is officially closed. We will then meet tomorrow, where we'll also be discussing our program as the Portfolio Committee. Thank you so much, colleagues.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks a lot, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.